Okay, this lecture is Aristotle, academic hero number 3. So, of the ancient Greeks from Athens, Socrates had taught Plato. Plato taught Aristotle. And then Aristotle had his own school, the Lyceum. He walked around teaching his students, and it was called the Peripatetic School, to walk around and talk and teach. Aristotle is considered by many to be the smartest person who ever lived. Aristotle classified pretty much all the important known information of the world up to his time. He's especially still remembered for his classification of rhetoric systems, logical systems, biology, philosophy, and many other subjects. Ayn Rand, who, by the way, I think is probably the smartest woman who ever lived. If anybody wants to challenge that statement, just go read Ayn Rand's quotes. Read her books, and you're like, holy crap, is she smart. She's not even just smart. She's a super genius. You'd be amazed. And by the way, everyone says that she's a bitch, okay? Whenever a woman is really smart, they always get called a bitch. That's how you usually know. If somebody says that lady is a bitch, go look that lady up. You'll find out she's probably really smart, okay? All men by nature, desire to know. Oh, okay, let's hear Ayn Rand's quote about Aristotle. She said, "Everything that makes us civilized beings, every rational value that we possess, is the result of Aristotle's influence. Aristotle may be regarded as the cultural barometer of Western history. Whenever his influence dominated the scene, it paved the way for history's brilliant eras. Whenever it fell, so did mankind." Okay, and that's a good point. If you want to look at that from a historical point of view, Cicero, the greatest of the Romans, was a super big fan of Greek philosophy. Okay? Then, if you want to look at Thomas Aquinas, he was the guy who sort of got the Christian European church of that time to be more appreciative of Aristotle. That was called the scholastic movement, and it was a very powerful intellectual movement that created more intellectual sophistication and open-mindedness in Europe, and that really led to the Renaissance and sort of this appreciation of classical learning. By classical learning, one refers to Greece and Rome, and that was a big improvement for things at that time in the world. Okay, so some quotes from Aristotle. Aristotle lived so Ayn Rand lived from 1905 to 1982. Aristotle lived from 384 BC to 323 BC. And that whole time period from about 500 to 300 BC is literally fascinating. Percy Bysshe Shelley said of all the history time periods, that was the most interesting one in his experience to read about. It's quite extraordinary. Especially from the perspective of Athens. Okay, so anyways, Aristotle's first quote, "All men by nature desire to know." Okay, next for Aristotle, "To facilitate rational thought, we must learn to control our emotions. The first step to an intelligent conversation is to control one's emotions." And I've noticed that's a main obstacle to a lot of people. They're not capable of learning anything because they're so emotional. They want to jump to a quick conclusion. To go through life like that is to, forever be an idiot. Okay, we should study, and when it comes to nutrition, lots of fat, sick people, that's how they are. That's why they never get better. We should study excellence to become excellent. That's an important point, too. There's a great celebration of mediocrity in modern society, and it's important, to study the persons who are successful at something. If you want to learn about health, study people who are healthy. Average population data really doesn't matter as much as studying these centenarians or studying populations, where they're incredibly healthy, where they're skinny, they don't have any diabetes. I mean, you really want to study the great achievements. That's where you learn. You don't need to study fat diabetics. I see, tons of them all day, every day. Okay, the highest activity of a man is the pursuit of truth. If you're going to have good learning, you have to pursue truth. One of the reasons why modern research stinks is because it's not in pursuit of truth quite often. It is in pursuit of how can we make money for the company? How can we make money for the organization, corporation that's funding our research? Modern research, modern journals, quite often they're a joke because they're just attempts to make profit. And that's why with all the modern millions and billions of dollars, so little progress has been made for many important medical things. And you think I'm joking. Look at diabetes, okay? Low fat, low sodium vegan diet, cured type 2 diabetic. Less than 4 years, almost always, okay? You can take all the pills in the world. You can never cure diabetes with a pill. Why? Because it's a dietary disease. And then the average person who's only had a superficial acquaintance with nutrition will think, oh, well, ketogenic diet for diabetes. No, that's stupid, okay? We don't want to talk anymore about that. But Aristotle's philosophy of education and knowledge just leads to better and better results. Okay, Aristotle continues, the life of the intellect is the most pleasant and best life because intellect is that which is unique about man. The pleasure of contemplation of truth is continuous and enduring. It does not wax and wane like other pleasures. Okay, that's a great one because, yes, it's wonderful to enjoy eating a meal, but you enjoy it, you eat it, you're done. On the other hand, you can enjoy a book all day long. A meal only lasts a little while. Making the two-back beast can be a lot of fun, but it doesn't last very long, okay? Unfortunately, of all men, the philosopher is the most godlike. Therefore, philosophers are the best men. Of course, he's a little biased on that one. Okay, Aristotle continues. All learning begins by imitation. That's an important point. The great Renaissance artists, they developed their skill by imitating the great artists who went before them. Somebody wants to be a great writer, read the great writers and see how they do it. Okay, and if you want to be in any sport, learn from the persons who are great at it. For example, I was in wrestling in college, and I was really kind of, varsity starter, above 500 record, but not doing that great my first 2 years. And then when I started hanging around the Schultz, national champions, world and Olympic champions, man, I got good real fast. One of the biggest regrets of my life, I didn't hang out with them when I was younger because I would have learned a lot faster as a freshman. I was too scared of them. So you got to seek out mentors in whatever field you're trying to get good at because they will, just being around them, you'll get their psychology that works in that field. I also learned when it came to wrestling, whatever the Schultz brothers said, that was correct. Even if it seemed to contradict what I know, I should ask them why does it contradict it, but they were always right. One learns that which we learn by doing. That comes from Aristotle. One learns to play the harp by playing the harp. Intelligence is more than knowledge of a task. Intelligence is also the ability to perform the task. A shipbuilder builds ships. The proof that you know something is that you can teach it. That's a good standard too. If you want to get good at something, teach it as you're going along learning it. Write a book about it. That's another good thing. There is only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. Yeah, anybody that goes out and tries to achieve something, there's always going to be people who criticize them and insult them or are jealous of them and all this stuff. So if you want to be an achiever, you just have to accept that. That goes with it. Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the other. These are all Aristotle's quotes. The high-minded man must care more for the truth than for what people think. That's not easy to do. If you look at nutrition experts, you can see all these, I'm embarrassed for them, so-called nutrition experts, recommending olive oil. That's bogus. In my opinion, a person's disqualified as a nutrition expert once they start recommending olive oil. I mean, give me a break. Olive oil, MSG, all this nonsense. Those things, So what I'm trying to say is, quite often, there is no money in telling the truth. I hate to say it. It is sad, but it is true. There's no money in telling the truth about nutrition. It won't get you interviewed, okay? It won't get you any profit. But if you want to save somebody's life, they need to know the truth on what is healthy in order to be healthy. And a lot of times you need, heuristics, like rules of thumb to guide you by. And here's the one, I've said it a million times. Be like Adam and Eve, but keep your indoor plumbing and indoor heating. Going in that direction will usually tell you what's good for humans and what is probably the right thing to do. They didn't have any of this processed oil. They didn't have any processed food. They didn't have any salt shakers. Okay, next Aristotle quote. When we think, we speculate in pictures. And that's an interesting statement. A dog obviously knows things. It can tell what type of mood you're in. It can remember things. So it doesn't have any words. Therefore, it must think in pictures. Chimpanzee and other primates, they can think and they don't have language. So we probably also think in pictures. And I've seen times when I'm doing something and I can envision in my mind what I need to do or what's important without being able to articulate it just yet. So I think that picture in our mind's eye comes first. Okay, Aristotle continues. There are no prudent young people. Prudence is concerned with specifics as well as universals. Specifics become known from experience, but young people lack experience. So what he's basically saying is there's no wise. Prudence could be like wisdom or wise. Young people are not wise. They might be smart, they might be really smart, but they're not wise. They don't have enough life experience to be wise, to really know what matters and to have that big perspective. Like young guys think they know everything, but anyways, that's another topic. Okay, Aristotle continues. The family is the association established by nature for the supply of man's everyday needs. Yeah, that's what makes people be happy, being with their family, around their friends, being allowed to associate with whoever they want, with people they like. The family is sort of the unit of society. Education is the best provision for old age. Yeah, it's good to have a developed mind. Otherwise, you retire and you just sit around watching TV, and people who do that tend to crash and burn real fast. A developed mind gives you something to do, makes life a lot more interesting, makes the person more interesting. So it is worthwhile to develop it, even just for the joy of it. Okay, Aristotle continues. The intellect is the most divine thing about us. To strive and improve the intellect is the most noble thing we can do. The philosopher who strives to optimize the intellect does a great thing, as close to the divine as possible. Okay, Aristotle continues. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And that's another big one. That's pretty much common through most major world philosophies and to some extent religions, because by understanding yourself, you understand other people better. You say to yourself, well, gee, if somebody did that to me, I wouldn't like it, therefore I will not do that to other people. I would feel this way about something, therefore they probably feel that same way about it as well. So personal insight really helps you to understand other people better. Aristotle continues, if you would understand anything, observe its beginning and its development. See how it is made. And that's a good point. I found a lot of times understanding like a complex medical topic, I go back and I read the history of research on the subject, and then I get it. That helps. Okay, Aristotle continues, the greatest thing is to be a master of metaphor. It is the mark of genius to make good metaphors. It is the one thing that cannot be learned from others, because to be good with metaphors indicates a deep understanding of the likeness of things. And then Aristotle gives you the benefit of a metaphor. Ordinary words convey only what we already know. It is from metaphor that we best get hold of something new. Now that's a profound statement, and that's great. So what he's saying is, it is by a metaphor that we learn new things. So what happens is everything new that comes into our brain that we learn, we are able to remember it because we compare it to something else in our brain. All judgment is comparative, and we say that is a dog because it goes bow wow. That is a cat because it goes meow. We're comparing them. That is not a cat because it goes bow wow. Therefore, it must be a dog. And that's how we do it with everything. Okay. Aristotle continues. In order to solve a problem, you must first know what the problem really is, in the same way that you can't untie a knot until you've found the knot. And that's key for solving complex problems, is understanding how to look at the problem first. And that's a key for curing people of a disease. If you think that there's no known cause to hypertension, you don't look for it, and you end up just taking pills forever and you never get better. If you realize, gee, it's caused by a high-fat diet and high sodium and a lack of plant food, potassium and magnesium, you can get better like that quite often, okay? Same thing with diabetes. Well, gee, it's caused by eating high fat. I won't eat fat anymore. You can get better. The first 4 years, almost all type 2 diabetics are cured just by doing that. Well, gee, coronary artery disease is caused largely by eating a high-fat diet and oils and high sodium. I'll stop eating those things and sweets. You can cure and excess alcohol and caffeine. You can prevent coronary artery disease. That's simple, by correctly seeing the problem and understanding it. Okay, Aristotle's next form is teaching is the highest form of understanding. For really knowing a subject, when you really know it, then you can articulate it better. If you can't articulate it well, you probably don't know it that well. Okay. Aristotle continues. Poetry is more worthy of serious attention than is history, because history treats particular facts, whereas poetry is concerned with universal truth. History only tells us what has happened. Poetry tells us how things ought to be. Okay, so that's also an incredibly profound statement. What he's basically saying is, with history you learn about fixed events, and yes, that is worthwhile to know. But poetry, and by poetry he means like the Iliad and the Odyssey, The Idiot and the Oddity, and basically he means the theoretical view of one's imagination of the potential of mankind. So what he's saying is poetry or story gives us an aspiration of what we might aspire to, of how things might be. And by putting forth that idea of something better that's possible in our mind's eye, we can aspire to it and strive to it and make things better. So poetry and imagination, a good story, can inspire us more, do more for us than just a simple recitation of historical facts. You know, they're obviously both important. I mean, like, you look at ancient Greek history, Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian. That's an incredible book and story. But there's a tremendous amount to be learned from the Idiot and the Oddity, especially from the Odyssey, in my opinion. Okay, Aristotle continues. The best communities are formed when the middle class is the largest group. When there is no middle class, and the poor greatly exceed in number, troubles arise, and the country soon comes to an end. The tyrant who, in order to hold his power, suppresses every superiority, does away with good men, and forbids education and light, controls every movement of the citizens, and keeps them under perpetual servitude, wants them to grow accustomed to baseness and cowardice, has spies everywhere to listen to what is said in meetings, and spreads dissension and calumny among the citizens, and impoverishes them, and is obliged to stir up conflicts to keep his subjects occupied, and impose on them permanent need of a demagogue. Aristotle. So anyways, I hope that was a helpful introduction to Aristotle. He really did sort of open up the way, building upon the knowledge and experience of the earlier ones like Socrates and Plato, and he is a great intellectual hero of all time.